All right. For those at HQ, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Can we get the approval for the agenda? Motion by Commissioner Teoflack. Do we have a second? Do you have all right, Commissioner Lawrence, thank you. Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed by the same? All right, motion carries. On to the consent agenda. We have item A with healthcare EFT claims totaling $120,949.50. Item B is healthcare EFT claims totaling $118,120.37. Item C, healthcare EFT claims totaling $254,151.38. Item D, we have claims vouchers 12172 to 12193 totaling $103,237.08. Item E, claims vouchers 12194 to 12235 totaling $616,584.94. Chair would like to entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda totaling $1,213,043.27. Moved by Commissioner Chan. Do we have a second? Vice Chair Rowland, thank you. Do we have a discussion? Commissioner Kinney, I know you asked a lot of questions. Were you satisfied with the email response?
I was. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same? Consent agenda passes. All right. Approval of minutes. We have the July 12th work session. Is there a motion? Commissioner Chan, thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Teoflack, all right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Not appearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same? All right. We have the July 19th regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Teoflack. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you,
Oh,
Commissioner Chan.
Are you it to Commissioner Kenny?
Okay, Commissioner Kenny, you get the second on that one. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same? Motion carries. And the July 26th special meeting, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Commissioner Kenny? Is
Moved.
there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same? All right. On to public comment. 707. And for that, I have something to read that I meant to have squared away. Here we go. Please note that comments from the public are governed by the South County Fire bylaws, which also govern comments by commissioners. In that regard, comments are to be courteous. Personal attacks, derogatory remarks, or Insinuations concerning board members or staff are inappropriate. Comments should be germane and relevant to South County fire issues. Do we have anybody from the attendees list that would like to participate in public comments? If so, please raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anyone. We'll move into the fire chief's report. Chief Hovis.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners, liaison, staff, guests, and meeting attendees. Commissioners, I've emailed you earlier today an update on South County Fires, demographics or information data related to the pandemic and our first watch operational report and a few other items. If you have any questions on those items, I'd be happy to take them at the end of the report, but we'll get right into our slide deck if we could, Chris G. So on August 22nd, there was a significant event in the 8600 block of between 190th and 200th Street Southwest, where Engine 16 and Ladder 14 responded to a residential fire. It really was a fully involved Class A motorhome, and people that I know very well that have used that RV for a number of years wanted me to pass along to you their sincere thanks for the quick response, the extinguishment to get the RV under control, and also to keep it from extending to their home as well as the home to what we would call the Bravo exposure. Fortunately, this happened during the daytime, so another friend of the neighborhood was able to call not over to their house because they couldn't see the smoke the way the wind was blowing and them being in the backyard, and then called 911. So a great event for Engine 16, Ladder 14, Battalion 15, and a couple of quick shots on my ring camera as they went by. So our crews are doing great work. Our smoothbore nozzles and also the hose, Commissioners, that you've authorized for purchase. When I came and saw that event later that night, when I returned home, it was unbelievable how well that the crews worked together very quickly. So on behalf of some neighbors, thank you, South County Fire. Firefighters responded that day and they wanted me to express that to our Commissioners. So with that, let's go to the next slide. Commissioners, we've got 3 events coming up. The Health and Safety Block Party, known as the Fair on 44th, September 10th. That's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's in front of our Fire Station 15 on 44th at the 18800 block in Linwood. And another event coming up is our Patriot Day 9/11 Memorial. That's, of course, on September 11th at 9:11 a.m. in front of Fire Station 17 at 275 6th Avenue North in Edmonds. Then a newer special event in the city of Edmonds, an Emergency Preparedness Expo. That's September 17th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Francis Anderson Center at 700 Main Street. These are all events, obviously, that we're participating in coming up here in the next week. And then next slide, please. And Commissioners, I want to let you know that South County Fire was forwarded an invitation by City of Mount Lake Terrace Mayor Kyoko Matsumoto Wright to a newer event. It's called a Hometown Heroes, and it's going to be in Bellevue, also on September 17th. This is intended for Puget Sound area first responders and veterans or current service military of Asian American and or Pacific Islander descent. They can attend off duty at an informal meet and greet where they will be honored. They will be fed lunch. And in the theme of it is serving those who serve. And some Seahawks I know are going to be present. So it should be a fun event. With that, thank you for the opportunity to provide my fire chief report this evening. Staff would welcome any questions from the board.
Commissioner Chan, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah, no, I was just commenting that at the AAPI event, it's a great event. There's a lot of people sponsored there. I think that was I think CAC, one of the pretty active Asian community is doing. I think we have quite not too many, but have a few what I call firefighter that with all that. I think is important. I personally sign up for it. I think Chief Hooper, have you signed up for that too? Yeah. Okay. So I just welcome anybody, commissioner, to go there. You don't have to be, but I think is get involved the Chinese the Asian community. I think that's that's a good exposure for our organization.
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. And Commissioner Chan, affirmative. Yeah, I'm signed up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for the chief? All right. Thank you, Chief Hovis, for your report.
Thank you, commissioners.
And on to legal report.
Good evening, commissioners. Pretty brief report here tonight, just to kind of quickly summarize the work that we've done over the last month for the RFA. We've been involved with some HIPAA compliance issues, public works matters, charitable donations, some issues associated with Mill Creek transition, contract drafting and review, and working with staff and our outside consultants on due diligence issues surrounding the property that we have under contract. That's pretty much it for the past month. I did want to mention a couple of recent PRA case, Public Records Act cases that are interesting, that I'll just take a moment to summarize. There was and both of these are unreported cases, so they don't have the same effect as a reported case, but they do have interesting holdings. One was a case filed by an inmate against the Department of Corrections, fairly typical kind of Public Records Act case. And the agency, the Department of Corrections, responded on a form. Like most agencies, they have forms to put, they send out in 5 days saying, here's how long it's going to take to answer your request. Well, there's usually a blank for how long it's going to take us to respond. Most agencies can't provide the records within 5 days. So they said they would provide a status update within business days on or before 2019. Well, they left out the words to go into the blanks that were on the form. So within how many business days and on or before what date in 2019. The court said, well, it was inadvertent. There was no intent here to violate the act, but even so, it was a violation. But the interesting quirk is because the plaintiff was an inmate, there's a statute that says you don't get any penalties awarded in your favor if you're an inmate when you file a public records request. So no penalties, but she did get attorney's fees and costs. So that's just kind of a caution when you're using forms, make sure that all the blanks are filled in. The second one that was interesting was involved King County. Public Records Act was filed and they did not provide all the responsive records. But the requester didn't realize that until over a year later when she filed a lawsuit against the county. And then she undertook some discovery, and in that discovery, there were over 500 records that had been responsive to her request, but that the county had withheld for whatever reason. Under the statute, under the act, the statute had ran. It's only a 1-year statute of limitations from the last date that the agency does anything, provides a final installment or whatever. The plaintiff argued, well, that statute of limitations should be told because it took me a while to realize there had been a violation. So that statute should actually be lengthened until the time I discovered it. Court said, no, the legislature has been very clear about that. It's 1 year. There had been a longer statute of limitations that applied to these cases, 3 years, and the court found it significant that the legislature reduced that. And so to provide for a discovery rule would just kind of undermine the legislative intent. So that's all I have tonight for the legal report, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Rich. Any questions for our attorney? All right. I don't see any. Thank you again.
Thank you.
President Hoover texted me, let me know that they aren't going to have a union report tonight. So go on to unfinished business. And the first item is the Mill Creek Liaison Bylaws update from Vice Chair Rowland.
Yes, so in the packet tonight, we have the bylaws amendment ready for being voted on. There was a comment or a question from Mr. Todd about reimbursement for travel expenses or expenses just in general. And after taking a look at the bylaws, I believe that should be covered. And again, we decide the interpretation of the bylaws. but they're in underneath the section that handles expenses. It just says the board shall be reimbursed. So in my opinion, that does cover him for now. I know that when we do the rewrite, or we finish the rewrite, one of the things that we're going to be doing is making sure that we have consistent languages across the document, because it didn't it wasn't written originally with the idea of board members and non-voting board members. So that will be done during that time.
Any other questions or comments for Vice Chair Rowland in regards to the bylaws? Commissioner Kenny, sorry.
Yes, thank you. I think that particular issue may also be handled. It depends on the definition of compensation in, let's see this. So this is the packet. It's page 52 of 114. And it's page 3 of 21 of the proposed bylaws, amended bylaws, and paragraph, new paragraph, renumbered paragraph, sorry, 1.8.6, equal to compensation paid to commissioners, if that compensation is defined to include all the various reimbursements that we get, including mileage, which I would think it would, and not just the reimbursement amount for the daily, a reimbursement amount, I believe $128 for days worked on behalf of the RFA. It should be covered there. I would also just mention that the redraft, unless I'm mistaken, it adopts Mr. Todd's suggestion that the position essentially be called a board member, which was Mr. Todd's suggestion, I think, actually, I think at our first meeting. And so I just wanted to note that, because the various language related to that appears to have been taken out, leaving it just non-voting board member. So that sounds good to me, but it does change some of the wording that we've been using here at the board. So we should just be consistent with that going forward, how the new bylaws will read. But otherwise, I think they're good.
Anybody else? Thank you, Commissioner Kenny. All right. So, Vice Chair Rowland.
I just wanted to move that we adopt this bylaws amendment as put out in the packet.
Commissioner
Second.
Kenny, is that a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and proceed to vote. All those in favor of the new bylaws, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same? Motion carries. Good job, gentlemen. All right, on to 6 months of mutual aid data presentation with Assistant Chief Isotelo, Deputy Chief Eastman, and Data Analyst Pardee.
Thank you, Chair Daniels. I think I'll start with this, and Jennifer, if I could get you to come on camera, just for the person doing the work on the backside. I'd like the board to again, for those of you who don't know Jennifer, Jennifer's our data analyst, and she's exceptionally good at what she does, and truly an added asset to the RFA, and will take us to the next place and beyond. So I'm just going to quick go over, Commissioner Kenny, I believe you asked for just where we are with auto mutual aid, for the first 6 months of the year. We had data for the first 7. So what we're providing you and what was in the packets, the first 7 months. And we did it, we used to do it with just incidents, and that really doesn't tell the picture. And I'll just quickly, briefly explain the slide. So if you go to page 78 of your packet, One of the things we started looking at the very end was total time on task, and measuring how much time on task each agency gave us, and then how much time on task we gave each agency in mutual aid we gave. And if you look, we did this where each graph, so in slide 78, it's total time given and received. So the in red, you're seeing the mutual aid received, and in the gold is the mutual aid given. And if you see the majority of the people we do mutual aid with, or the organizations we do mutual aid with, our borders, Everett, Mukilteo, Shoreline, Fire District 4, and Snohomish Regional are our primary mutual aid, both given and received. And you can see, with the exception of Shoreline, we are giving more than we are receiving. And we will do a further deep dive in comparison for the previous 5 years, with Jennifer doing that work. And we'll be able to look at what's trending, just realizing that COVID data, we've been trying to base everything on 2019. So right now, we're giving more than we're receiving, and it's about 200 and is it 250 hours, Jennifer? Is how much we're giving more than we're receiving, I think, total. If you go to page 79, this is total units dispatched. And you see the numbers, and they speak for themselves. Again, received is in red, and us going into other agencies is in gold. And the last slide, which is page 80, is the actual amount of mutual aid units that arrive on scene. And so if you look at the difference between those two numbers, we dispatch far more units, both in auto aid, both given and received, than who actually arrives on scene. We give these just as a overview of what's happening, but the real slide that we as staff pay attention to is slide 78, which is the total time our crews are committed providing mutual aid and auto aid, and the amount of time those that are providing auto mutual aid to the RFA, what their time task committed is. We feel that's a more fair representation of us using somebody else's resources than other people using ours, to see imbalance versus just dispatches. So with that, I'll pause and take any questions, and specifically want to make sure that we address Commissioner Kenny's request for the information.
I have questions, Commissioner Kenny. I'll let you start though.
Sounds good. Thank you. Chief Eastman, thanks for the data. I have been intrigued. You've kind of moved towards that total time. This is not the first time I've seen total time, but total time seems to be more prominent here, which is, it's another way to look at it, which I think is good. I do like how we have the other slides though, because I guess maybe it's just the way I've thought about it for years. I really think more in terms of responses and not overall units, although the units actually arriving, I guess, is fairly comparable. The only thing about the time is that I guess perhaps different jurisdictions have different ideas of what's required, and it's possible that we send more units per our standard than other jurisdictions would. And I don't know if that's overkill or necessary or what have you, but as an example, Chief Hovis and I have talked about District 4 before. District 4 more typically might send 1 unit in response. We might send 4. The fact that we send 4, does that mean that it really needed 4? And suddenly, we're providing a whole lot more service, or it's more of an impact? Maybe, maybe not. And so I do think it's a good, particularly when you look at the aggregate in terms of the total amount of time we're providing to everybody. I think that's interesting to think about those hours, because those are person hours that are out there actually being taken up, providing service in that other jurisdiction. anyways, I just think it's interesting to think about the different ways there. To me, the issue is over time, which I've commented previously about these auto and mutual aid numbers, is fairness. That they should be in balance. Although I have, taken a longer view on that over time, as we have in the past looked at very long statistics and how that can change over time. That it may be unbalanced in 1 year or 2 years, but it may balance out when you look at more years. So it's just thinking about the fairness isn't necessarily related to 1 quarter, half year, or one particular year. I did want to drill down though a little bit on the surfer statistics because page 78 indicates in terms of hours, we provided significantly more hours, but then at 79, what we've actually received more in terms of dispatched units. So I was curious, but then in terms of units that actually arrived, we've got more than they do. So that's just, can you maybe talk through a little bit about that? Because those 3 different graphs show slightly different things.
Yeah.
What's the story paint there?
So I think it's multifaceted, and I think it's why we look at the 3 different measurements now rather than just one, because it's important to look. And when I look at the time on task, I don't know if I have a great answer yet without looking and doing further work on it. But between station 13 and station 21, station 77 and station 76, that's where most of our mutual aid interaction happens with Snohomish Regional. They also come up and support station 12 and station 11, and those units come down too. And I think the biggest is probably, and Jennifer, you may know this off the top of your head, but I think the time on task is we probably do more transports when we do mutual aid, which actually adds more time, with where you look at the units that get dispatched and the total number of units arrive are relatively consistent. But if we do more transports than they do, that would account for the, 15 to 20% more in committed time as a result of, because transports, as we know, especially from 13, you're driving and out of service a little bit longer as a result. So that would be where I would go with it. Jennifer, do you have additional information for Commissioner Kenny?
No, I think that was a good comment to make. I think the other comment is kind of leading back to Jim, what you had mentioned earlier about how the quantity of resource that is sent. This is definitely derived at the unit level when we look at that data. So we are taking into account every dispatch of a unit, not just looking at a count for an incident. So that could be another thing that drives that time spent on task higher in that capacity.
I was curious about the numbers. They look pretty good. I mean, the big one is a surfer. The numbers look just, my uneducated eye, but having seen this over many years, looks fairly equal, which is good. That's kind of where I want it to. I'm hoping it's going to be. But one I wanted to talk a little bit about the other that is interestingly pretty comparable, at least in dispatched units, maybe not quite in time, is Everett. But I was hoping to talk a little bit about Shoreline and Mukilteo, because in Shoreline, and my recollection historically, we have received more than we've given, although these numbers are not huge, certainly compared to Surfer, but we've given more than we've received out of Shoreline. That's true again the first 7 months of this year, and we are giving more than we're receiving from Mukilteo. So I was curious, have you received any comments out of Shoreline, any unhappiness? Because this isn't new. My recollection is this is pretty consistent with the past. Have you received any comments out of Shoreline about how they're giving more to us than we're to them? And any comments about about Mukilteo and us giving more to them than they're giving to us?
So on the conversation of Shoreline, I'm going to defer to either Chief Hovis or Chief Isotelo as they have more conversations with Shoreline. So Chiefs.
Commissioner Kenny, it's a good question. Their Assistant Chief of Operations, John Nankervis, retired recently. So we had a check-in period quite often. They understood when they had incidences, we would go to the south. They understand proportionally we are under-resourced in the South Battalion due to the staffing in the city of Edmonds. And that's generally what those responses come into. It's Station 20's area. 17s or 16s when we get busy, there's a major fire or incidents, or during our peak times, especially when there's training. They understood that, but then when they would get busy at the same time, we reciprocated and had a great relationship. Their only concerns were really around just watching the medic unit responses, because as you know, Shoreline's fire department controls the medic staffing essentially in Zone 1 for Shoreline Fire Department, North Shore, as well as Bothell. So at this point, really no concerns. We just continue to watch it. And Mukilteo has not said anything because they still don't have a fire chief. So I have not heard anything from the battalion chiefs or anything over there, or their fire marshal who's acting in that role. So nothing at this point. Mukilteo hasn't changed their staffing model, but at the same time, Mukilteo is approximately 98% built out in what is buildable in that area. So don't see too many changes with that at this time. So
it seems like the Mukilteo numbers, they're consistently, we're providing more service to them. I don't know that that's worth going to the mat over, but it is something to continue to keep an eye on. One, maybe for numbers for the end of the year, one number that I'd like to pick a bone about, which I don't see here, didn't necessarily expect it here, but if you'll recall, Mukilteo canceled their ladder truck service with us because we were going to provide that for free. So I was just kind of curious what the numbers show in terms of how often our ladder has gone into Mukilteo, maybe for numbers after the end of this year, if there's any ability to do that. I'd just be kind of curious to see where does that stand? Was that maybe 3 years since they canceled that contract? Where does that stand on us providing gratis ladder service to Mukilteo? But otherwise, it looks good.
We can easily add that and add that as a footnote to the report at the end of the year.
Cool. Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And almost 3 years to the date, Commissioner. It was 2019. I remember that meeting. Thank you.
My memory's better than I thought.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Any other commissioners have any questions? All right. I was curious, back to Commissioner Kenny's comment about basically deployment strategies amongst the different agencies. Is South County Fire's deployment strategy different than that of, say, Surfer? I'm looking one of the chiefs.
Jason's
Yeah,
there
sorry,
he goes.
I'm having mute issues here. Chair Daniels, similar but different. The geographical space that they cover is much greater. Their stations are farther spaced out. On the western border or eastern, there's a lot of reciprocation between 21, 12, 13, as was discussed earlier with Station 76. I think next year will be a little bit different look at that when we start to respond from Station 76. It's a very good location with a more consistent border with our responses, being able to assist again with all of those neighboring stations, 21, 12, but it'll be our unit. Additionally, out in the area of 77, my understanding is depending on staffing, sometimes that unit is in service, sometimes it is not. Sometimes it's only an aid car. So there's some variability day to day out there that is difficult to look at when you go down to the unit like this, because it's day by day, it changes. So ours is consistent, ours is the same. They make adjustments. Additionally, down to the south of Mill Creek at Station 72, where they have their ladder truck, there may be some movement with that truck moving somewhere else. Since they won't be covering the city anymore, and we can successfully cover the city with our 2 ladder trucks. So there's a lot in play with Surfer right now. We actually have a meeting, I believe, early next week with their administration to discuss through some of this stuff, develop an IEP for the transition to Station 76 and timeline and all of that for moving forward with CMO Creek. So yes, it's similar, but it's different, but it's more similar than on our southern border of the RFA and our northern border of the RFA with Shoreline and with the city of Everett, as they have dedicated medic units.
Thank you. You use an acronym though, and I'm not able to follow you. It said IAP with the
Sorry, incident action plan.
Okay, thank you. I've heard of an IEP, for elementary school and whatnot. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a planning process for, could be large scale event, weather event, natural disaster, or, something like transitioning a fire station from one jurisdiction to another.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Perhaps we need those for commissioner meetings.
What'd you say, Commissioner Fairnoff?
I said perhaps we need an IAP for the commissioner meetings, just to keep us on our 204s.
All right. The topic of other is, what does that consist of?
So there is mutual aid we get where those are one unit come in. A lot of it has to do with hazmat and rescue, where they're countywide responses. And so we look at the data countywide as a whole. And those are where we went one time or to an agency, or they came once to us. And we just put those together because they're really, we went to North County once, and I think it was a technical rescue unit. They didn't come to us at all. Or you'll see where we ask for a move up because of a major fire, and we have stations come back. Those are what those other are. Or they're a really, really, really big third, fourth alarm event. But there's not many. So we group them together so you're not looking at no bars and just the number at the bottom.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, as I recall, you did this in Power BI. Was that right, Chief Eastman?
So this was done in Excel.
Okay.
But I know Jennifer's working on doing this work and having it in Power BI. But this specific request, it was quicker and easier for us to do it in Excel. But I know she's working on doing that work in Power BI so we can create dashboards to people to go look and can look at date ranges, and we don't have to be doing these kind of reports this way. We, in a perfect world, be able to direct commissioners to a dashboard where they can look up this information and other data elements with regards to operations, and then wherever else we want to go at your leisure whenever you want. And the beauty is that what Jennifer's doing with Power BI, it's connected with First Watch, which is as real time as we're going to get with our incident data. But that's where we're going. We're just not quite there yet.
No problem. I know as a data analyst myself that when I present, like, oh, okay, here we go. I answered some questions. I was like, oh man, more questions. So I have more questions for you. So I really like what Commissioner Kenny was talking about with the overall trend line. And so in the Power BI, if you could do trend lines, that would be great, especially over the last 5 years. And then I think that when you're looking at that far along 60 months, that if you were to do it like 6 month rolling or increments, so that way we can just see that those checkpoints in the trend line to make it easier. And then I'm also curious to know that with the overage for the different graphs, if there's a way to either do a simple table or maybe a pie chart that shows where that percentage kind of goes to. So if we look at the page 78 here, that Surfer happens to be the largest delta difference between what we've received and versus what we've given. It would be interesting to know what percentage that is compared as a whole on the whole picture and those kind of things.
The funny thing about that, Commissioner Daniels, is Jennifer had that set up and we didn't bring it forward, and she had it ready to go. So the answer to that is she's already got that, and that is easy to add as we roll. And I think as we build out the dashboards, we'll start with what we know everybody uses, and then I think we'll take those pieces and add as we go. Jennifer's exceptionally good and learns every day. And so as we build this out, there'll be, we hope that we have the opportunity to when we get to a place to show it to the board and then take your guys' input on stuff you want to see. We can build that in the dashboard so you guys will be able to go and look at it on a real-time basis and look at it when you want to.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, have you shared this information with the agency? I know in the past where a commissioner really watch it really closely, and also, but there was also dispute. They recorded differently. Are we all measured the same way now with all other agency?
Probably not, Commissioner Chan. I know currently we haven't shared this with anybody. This was, we did this at the request that Commissioner Kenny wanted to look at where we were with auto mutual aid, specifically for the last 6 months. So we have not done anything as far as reporting back to folks. We do know, part of the reason we added total time on task, we added wheel turns, not just incidents, and we added arrival units is because that encompasses what pieces other people were doing versus how we were, because initially when we produced this, we only gave you incidents. That was it. That's all we got from mutual aid. It was how many incidents we received and how many incidents we gave. And this is I think a more dynamic look. And I do know though that and Jennifer, you can add in that when we were working with the data standards group, which was the countywide data team, we were driving really hard to at least come up with a standard way to do business, so we didn't take data and weaponize it between agencies.
Right.
And I think in the conversations we've been having, and granted, the pandemic has slowed down some of those conversations, but with District 4, and if you recall back prior to the current chief, we had some big issues, and mutual aid and automatic aid and some of those things became a big topic of conversation. We have been talking, or I have anyway, with Chief Waller on a regular basis. He likes data. He wants the fire service to be talking the same language, and ensure that it doesn't mean people can't report things differently, but we all know what the standard is, and move forward. So I think we're far better than we were 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think we have a ways to go, but Jennifer represents South County Fire at the current data standards group, and participates in that. I think they're meeting monthly now, and that increases as they need it. So I think we're getting far better at that. And Jennifer was one of the leaders at the county back in the day, which got consensus on how we report. So I don't think we're as far apart as we were before. I'm not saying we're all exactly the same, but I think our principles and the philosophy moving forward is fairly consistent.
Yeah, I think in the past, I thought the new world were able to, Snow 91 were able to give you the similar standard data so we can measure, because it's very difficult, because sometimes we thought we get more. No, they said, no, we get more. So if without a standard to really measure, it's really difficult to deal with other commissioner, to other district. I mean, we want it as fair as possible, but we got to have the same measurement. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to anybody.
Deputy Chief Eastman, you said data standards group. Is that a data governance group?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what it is now. I can tell you it started with, it was a fire service charge. It was us trying to make sure that the data we got from CAD was accurate. We knew where the data came from, and the measurements we were getting from was accurate. And there were, I want to say, Snohomish Regional, South County, Everett, Arlington, were the main agencies that provide staff to actually go and look at the data, and make sure the quality of the data and what the outcomes were was accurate based on what we were looking for. And that was a true countywide effort. The fire chiefs, it was part of the county fire chiefs group. We were a subgroup of I believe TAC. And obviously the pandemic slowed everything down. And so I guess, for lack of a better term, I was the chair of that until the pandemic hit. 911 kind of hired a data analyst, and they're trying to keep it alive. And I think it's got some synergy now moving forward. But it is the partners within the fire service that are looking at data, making sure that the data we get out is accurate. So when people report, they can be confident in what they're reporting on. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yeah, yes. Does it ever end up in getting compensated from, let's say, like Mukilteo, we always seem to be giving? I know it's always better to give than receive, apparently, but it's costing us money. And also, we could put another category of sort of hours and dispatches, dollar bills. How much is it costing the mutual aid deficit in dollars? So maybe a bit more real. But I understand in the conversations that it's the standards of measuring that it needs to be standardized. Otherwise, whose data is right? So anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. Any other questions?
Well, I actually wanted to answer that one part about money.
So-
Does it ever go to that far where wherever one agency gets compensated?
It hasn't that I'm aware of. We've had over the last 15 years, we've had some unequal mutual aid numbers in the past. One of the challenges is like Commissioner Kenny says, the trends change over time. We'll have a year where we give more than we receive, and then we'd have a year that it'd be the other way around. And one of the other pieces is because we work countywide as the closest appropriate unit responds, regardless of geopolitical boundary, you got to look at mutual aid and auto aid as a whole. You can't necessarily look at just us and Mukilteo and not look at the global picture, right? Because we are so operationally connected together that we need to be really careful as we go do that. So as of now, I don't think there's been anybody from a auto mutual aid perspective that has resorted to dollars and cents as part of the imbalance. I think they work operationally to fix those imbalances. But like an agency like ours, we need to look at the mutual aid, auto aid as the whole. Because when you look at us and Everett, for example, and Mukilteo, well, the three of us share units all together. So you got to look at it from a more global versus individual agency, is how we historically have looked at it. And it was far worse prior to Montlake Terrace, Breyer, and Edmonds and Linwood being part of the RFA. We had equal mutual aid amongst all of them. But if you looked at just one agency and another, the mutual aid numbers were horribly out of balance if you didn't look at it from the whole. As weird as that is. So I don't know if I answered your question or danced around it, but as of right now, nobody's doing that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. I mean, if historically, after 10 years, we're providing more aid to everybody around us, just like we're subsidizing Edmonds right now through the contract, we're subsidizing they didn't add another fire station.
Yeah. Staff watches that pretty close, Commissioner Lawrence, and there's conversations that happen operationally long before it would get to that place in time. We watch mutual aid, and operationally we look at it, and the ops groups talk about it. And if there's truly something that's way out of balance or trending way out of balance, operations does their best to adjust, and have been successful to date.
Chief Hovis.
I'd just say, Commissioner Lawrence and commissioners, those usually end up being contracts. So when those incidences have happened over, say, the last 30 years, Arlington Fire providing medic service up the valley to Oso and Darrington was an example. District 8, which is now Surfer, providing medic service to Granite Falls. Marysville Fire providing medic service to Tulalip Bay, District 15. The city of Everett or District 1 providing medic service to Mukilteo prior to the incorporation of the Harbor Point area and that annexation. Those are all historical things, mostly driven by ALS service, where that disparity or the needs of those towns or areas to have ALS service has translated into a contract to provide it basically based on you have the need, we've got the service, let's charge you. And it's based on time on task or wheel turn. So that takes us on a 30 back to at least 1980 right there, but that's when it happens generally. Thank you.
Commissioner Farnahoff?
Yeah, I just have a question. In the statistics, we alarm units to, let's say, go to Mukilteo, but in the process, they may be canceled. Are we looking at when they leave the RFA technically from our boundary line and entering into Mukilteo, that sort of counts as a point? Or when they get canceled even before they leave the barn or maybe out of the RFA? Is that something that's distinguished in any way when we do our statistics?
No, we look at if they get dispatched into Mukilteo, whether they leave the barn or don't leave the barn or never get out of the RFA or get into the city of Mukilteo. We look at all of those the same. And if they don't arrive on scene, they didn't arrive. And if they do arrive, I think that's what you're asking. We don't do it differently than that. One of the challenges we have with our current data set is I can't actually tell you where they're being dispatched from. Right. Right. The way we currently have it, I don't get their geolocation of where they were dispatched from. So we may have an agency or a unit that's coming from the hospital is in the city of Everett, gets to where by the way station, they're technically still in the city of Everett and get a mutual aid call to Mukilteo and never ever are in the RFA when they go. So we're limited by some of those things, but we look at it all the same. I don't know if I have the ability to do that piece with the current data set we have to get into the weeds like that, just because we don't have the information at that level of detail.
Thank you, Chief Eastman. Appreciate it.
Any further questions? All right. Thank you, Chief Eastman. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
On to item C, fireworks reduction plan for action. AC Fitzgerald.
Good evening, Commissioners. Following presentations on August 9th and 16th, beginning on page 81 of your packet, there's the amended fireworks plan incorporating previous Commissioner comments, and staff are hopeful that the Commission finds this ready for adoption tonight. Thank you.
All right, the chair would like to entertain a motion to go ahead and adopt, and I can sign the letter and send it over. Commissioner Kenny, so moved. Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Chan, I think I saw your hand up first. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Maybe next time, Commissioner Farnahoff. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by the same? All right, motion carries. All right.
Thank you, Commissioners.
New business, City of Briar letter and response. We have myself, Commissioner Chan, Deputy Chief Eastman, and Chief Hovis, and PIO Hines. This was a letter that I believe that each of you received, and then a response was crafted and sent separately. Commissioner Chan, do you want to cover the response letter?
Yeah, so we had a meeting with the committee. We got really good response from all the committee member. I think worksmith a little bit. So that letter, I think all the commissioners got the draft of the letter. So if you like to make some comments, addition type of thing, I think that would be great. I think more brain is better than one. I think I feel that the whole meeting was really meaningful, and we're only down to exactly less than 1 hour we got accomplished. So I thank the staff for drafting the initial one and then give us ahead of the meeting so we're able to read it and make some suggestions. Maybe I'll add some comments about
Commissioner
that.
Kenny?
Yes, I had a question. I'm not sure, I guess for the committee. I was wondering if there was a little more explanation about attaching the levy rates sheet at the back, which has a footnote indicating it does not include our benefit charge number. What was the, can you describe a little bit of what was the response? That's a response to a question from the mayor. What was, as best as you can divine, what was he driving at?
That information was provided at the city council meeting, and so they just wanted to have that in writing.
Yeah, I think Miguel explained that. Yeah, I think Chief Eastman probably better on answering that question.
Chief Eastman, your hands up.
Yeah, Commissioner Kenny, I think where the mayor was going is knowing what the surrounding fire departments charge and looking what the RFA charges. And at the end of the day, for potential partners for the city of Briar to get fire service from, we were at the current time in 2022 had the lowest levy rates when you combine fire, EMS. And we gave them the number for the benefit charge. They know it's $1.51. And that was in response to the mayor who had reached out to the city of Bothell, Shoreline Fire, and Snohomish Regional to see if they were options for fire service. And so it was in the context of that, in the context of the costs associated with fire service if they were to annex in. And he was looking at that information in context with previous discussions he's had with his council at previous meetings.
And Chief Eastman, maybe you can answer this question, just a technical question. On that levy sheet for the cities, there's a mark in a column there for general levy. That's not the city's full general levy. That's just the portion of the levy attributed to the fire department budget,
that-
separate from the EMS budget.
That is
or-
that's the city's general levy. So that's what the full city's levy is from the assessor's roll. And then the fire department comes out of that. So we did not go look at fire department budgets and roll back what the equivalent AV was. That's what, if you look at those departments, if you like Linwood, I want to say Linwood's 53, 58, 59 cents. That is what their general levy is for 2022. Montlake Terrace and Edmonds, that's what their general levy is. And then if they had an EMS levy, you looked at both. So, and that came right from the 2020 county assessor's report.
Well, okay, but then that makes the total at the end not an apples to apples comparison with, say, the fire district levies up above.
Yep.
That's
fair? Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was, yes. And they when the conversation that they've had is it's the, fire districts and RFAs, this is what their levy rates are. And then there's a comparison with what their current city's levy rate is, both general levy and EMS levy, compared to neighboring cities' general levy and EMS levy. And we just happen to have that information as a result of work staff has done and a spreadsheet that Commissioner Daniels has just for general information that we happen to have it, was able to share it. And we have shared that with the mayor and staff prior to this. So that's the context of why they wanted the information, because when we talked about it, I just said it through a mic and just said the numbers, and they said, we'd be nice to have those. So that's why they asked for the table.
Okay, thank you.
So I think, do we need a motion to send the letter? If any other input or corrections?
You're muted, Chair Daniels.
I love when I do that to myself. Thank you. Is everybody happy with the letter the way it's crafted as it stands?
I am.
All right, so I'd like to entertain a motion to go ahead and send the letter as it stands. Is there?
I'd like to make a motion to send the letters as draft right now.
Thank you, Commissioner
Sec-
Chan, Commissioner Kenny.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of sending the letter as drafted, say aye.
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 All those opposed by the same. Motion passes. Great.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Intergovernmental Committee, for the short notice meeting discussion and your presence at the Briar meeting. Thank you.
Presentation of the results of the status quo budget and introduction to discretionary operating budget requests. Chief Hovis and CFO Bothwell.
Good evening, commissioners. Got a PowerPoint here. All right, so we have 4 budget-related topics for tonight. The first is the 2023 status quo budget forecast, followed by the long-range forecast. The third item will be some decision packages, and we'll wrap up with an update related to the budget and next steps. So back in July, I brought you the revenue forecast, and then in August, I came with the expenditure forecast. Tonight, we're going to put those 2 pieces together with the status quo budget forecast. And what that is a comparison of forecasted revenues and forecasted expenditures to determine whether an imbalance exists. So if there is an imbalance and expenditures exceed revenues, then we have a deficit. If revenues exceed expenditures, then we have a surplus. Based on the preceding work, we're forecasting a 2023 annual operating deficit of about $500,000. That's based on the current revenue mix with no enhancements and based on current levels of service, again, with no enhancements. It is based on the status quo budget, but there are some differences between the status quo budget and the 2022 budget. So I'll walk you through those really quickly. The first one is that the labor contract is fully implemented in the status quo budget. So for the last couple of years, because the labor contract has been unresolved, we had to use estimates in the budget. So now we know what those costs are, and that's fully implemented or integrated into the status quo budget. The revenues and expenditures associated with Mill Creek, the Mill Creek annexation into the RFA, and the staffing changes in Edmonds, those are both fully integrated into the budget. And then 2 administrative positions that were recently approved by the board and investment income that was described at the same time. Those are fully integrated into the status quo budget. The status quo budget also assumes that 5 students will participate in the Central Washington University Paramedic School. That's different from 2022 in that there was 3 positions in the Harborview program in 2022. And then the last one is that training for 30 new hires is funded in the status quo budget. And those are not new positions. That is training for folks to fill spots due to normal attrition, so retirements and those kinds of things. The asset replacement annual set aside is also fully funded in the status quo budget. And then this is just an accounting treatment. The accounting for all general fund revenues those are accounted for in the general fund. And that's different than 2022 when GEMT and some property tax was accounted for outside of the general fund. But those are general fund revenues. And so those are going to be accounted for in the status quo budget. And the final one is that no contribution is made to the building reserve. So in the past, including 2022, some of the ground emergency medical transport or GEMT revenue was recognized in the capital fund, and that contribution or that accounting treatment is not made. So we have a long-range status quo forecast, and this is based on the 2023 status quo budget forecast. And what it tells us is that when we look out 5 more years, the operating deficit increases by about $1 million per year. And by the time we get out to 2028, the status quo budget forecast results in a deficit of over $6 million. And that is the end of the first 2 agenda items for tonight. We'll move into the decision packages, but I wanted to ask if there were any questions before we do that. All right.
Oh, I got questions in here.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, so on your forecast in the forward, are you including the contract with the labor of the increase and everything?
Yes.
Okay, but you did not put any inflationary number, the cost in
No.
the future?
No, there is inflation in those numbers. So it's based on the King County Office of Economic and Financial Forecasting. It's based on their inflation forecast, and the inflation, obviously inflation is in the contract that was just approved. That is the basis for wage increases. And so those are in there.
But how about the rest of the costs, the fuel and all the other thing? Are you also using the King County rate?
That's correct. Yep.
What rate are you using, if may I ask?
Of course, yeah. So on this slide, it's in your packet. I realize it's a little difficult to see. Under the year, that's the inflation. The first number is the inflation estimate.
Right.
The second number is the estimate for things that were not increasing by inflation that are not property tax. So property tax we held at the 2%, which is the historical increase.
Right.
That's the second percentage there is what we're using for benefits,
Right.
because
Right.
we know that our health care costs are forecasted to go up by 8%.
So the 2% for, okay, the increase of the property, you anticipate the housing prices will go up? Is that what it is? And also new constructions and everything in there?
Yeah, so great point. New construction is factored into the 2% property tax. So historically, we take the 1% allowable annual increase for property tax.
Right.
And historically, on average, we get another 1% from new construction value. And so that is included in the forecast.
Okay. You don't have any given by any, real estate, whatever, the projections and all that stuff. You just based on historical data, the percentages.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Bothwell, Jim Kenny, I don't know if you can see me, but I've got a couple questions for you. First, I just want to start with, I just want to confirm what you told Commissioner Chan on this slide you have right here. So the percentage number before the slide, so for 2024, the 4.17%, that's your inflation estimate for 2024?
No, price.
That's
Housing.
correct.
Okay.
No, that's the
then-
inflation estimate. Huh?
That's the inflation.
Mhm.
And then the 6.08%, that's your benefits inflation estimate for that year.
Right. And that's, I should have described that that's blended. It's based on inflation for most benefits and then 8% increase for the self-insured healthcare, which is how we forecasted it historically.
And the inflation estimate, what how are you arriving at that for those, particularly those outer years, 25, 26, 27, 28?
That's from the King County Office of Economics and Financial Analysis. It's the forecast that they issued in July for CPIW or CPIU.
Okay, so I wanted to go back to a couple of the items you mentioned for the budget, and you indicated that the apparatus and equipment replacement was now, instead of based on a 6% of operating revenues, was a quote dynamic funding model unquote, which results in between 250 and 800,000 of increased costs to that budget in these years. Can you describe what is this new dynamic funding model?
Well, so the previous model was based on 6%. There was 6% of general fund expenditures was going to be set aside for apparatus and equipment replacement. That didn't necessarily have a direct connection year after year to the cost of those replacements. And so what we've done is we've gone through and said and recosted the replacements based on what we know for inflation and the most recent purchases of various apparatus and equipment, and recalculated what the annual set aside should be. And then that's what's in the status quo budget rather than the 6% of just general fund expenditures.
So the model, is the model, because I know we have a spreadsheet of all of our apparatus. when it was purchased, what the life cycle is for it. It probably includes what the depreciation is on it, or what the anticipated maintenance cost, or what the inflation is going to be related to it year by year for every year that it's going to be a frontline unit. Is it based on that, or is it some other, funding model from a magic box that I haven't seen? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Is I haven't heard about a dynamic funding model, so I'm wondering, what is that?
Well, I guess, so no, it's not, there's nothing magic about it. It's what you described. The problem, or the opportunity that we had, was that the 6% that was being set aside didn't have a direct relationship with the cost that we were calculating in the spreadsheet you just described. And so what this does is it spreads that cost out and then funds the average annual cost, rather than just a 6% that doesn't necessarily have the relationship on an ongoing basis with the replacement schedule that you just described.
And does it fund it in a way, does it fund it out of the general fund, or does it fund it off the top, i.e. the 6% comes off and we don't see it and it goes into that budget, or is this funded essentially as an expense, funding that replacement on it?
It's funded as an expense out of the general fund.
Okay, well, that sounds good. So then my next question is the building and maintenance funds have had GEMT revenue monies placed in them, and this budget does not do that. And so my question is why?
Well, the needs haven't been identified. There's about $27 million sitting in that fund. In the last year, there was nothing budgeted out of that fund. And quite honestly, the GEMT is an operating revenue, and operations, we need it to fund operations.
So that is a change of position on the part of the administration for many years in a row now, to put that in, recognize that in the general fund, as opposed to essentially a reserve fund. So I'm wondering why, and then why no monies are going into that building fund out of the GEMT. So there's kind of two parts to that.
Sure. So I can answer the first question. So the GEMT is a general fund revenue. We could use it for any lawful purpose of government. So there's no restrictions placed on that. When you adopt a budget, if you send that for a different purpose, then it's a council or a board approved or designated restriction. So there's no reason that it can't be put back into the general fund. It is a general fund revenue. That's kind of a normal accounting treatment. I think that there's an opportunity to increase transparency with all the revenues that the RFA is collecting by putting it in the general fund, since it is a general fund revenue. Just in terms of why aren't we setting money aside for it? Well, we don't have a specific plan. We haven't identified an exact amount of money that we're going to spend next year for it. And quite honestly, operations needs it. So in terms of if the question becomes, are we going to raise taxes to fund, money into the building, to do anything more than we're currently doing with the status quo budget, where the money's going to have to come from somewhere. And so I think that this accounting treatment facilitates a really honest conversation about where all the revenues are. And so we're putting it towards operations first in this scenario. So.
And Mr. Bothwell, that's, I think the last estimates we had were 9 million this year of GEMT. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Okay. And there has been comments from the administration in the past that there was a concern that the GEMT, it shouldn't be put in the general fund, it should be put in the building fund because it might go away. It's uncertain. And so I was curious what your thoughts were about it going away and uncertainty to the extent that it shouldn't be included in the general fund for 2023.
Well, so the general rule or the best practice for recognizing revenue in the general fund, or recognizing revenue in your budget at all, is whether or not it's speculative. So I think for 2023, we wouldn't consider it to be speculative. If we think that the revenue is uncertain into the future, then we should start planning for that type of, if it weren't to show up, what would we do? I think at this point we have adequate fund balance to cover that while we, step back and figure out what would happen. I believe, and DC or Chief Eastman might be able to speak better to this, but the GEMT money, it's my understanding, is part of an entitlement program, and I don't know that. I think we would have a long runway if it were to go away. If we all of a sudden weren't gonna receive that revenue anymore. It qualifies to be spent on operations. We need it this year. I guess that's all I can offer.
Okay. And the $500,000 deficit you identified at the start of your presentation, is that including an analysis that is utilizing the full 9 million GEMT into the general fund?
That's correct.
So even with the GEMT, we're $500,000 short.
You're correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I would just note that this is and why I wanted to be sure to spend a little time on it, is that this is a significant change from the past. And actually, it's a good change, in my opinion, that the GEMT money should be recognized in the general fund. It should not go off the top into the building fund. And we should not be having a policy that essentially puts it in there, that it should go into the general fund. And then each year we can determine what we want to do with that. But I didn't want to let it pass without noting that that's a significant change, because we've had significant disagreements at the board about that in the past. And the administration position has won out, at least in theory, at least in policy over time, not always in practice completely. So this is a significant change. I think it's a good change. So I'm pleased to see that. So, and I wanted to be sure I knew the practical impact of the 9 million GEMT, that was already included in this budget, and we're still $500,000 short even with that. So, so great. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Bothwell.
Thank you. Do you want me to ask?
I don't see any further questions. Do you want to continue?
Thank you. All right, so we're moving on to our third item on the agenda, and that is decision packages. And what a decision package is it's a discretionary budget request submitted by divisions to the chief as part of the internal budget development process. So we're going to share some decision packages that have been submitted by divisions with you tonight. But the chief is still formulating his budget proposal. And so the presentation tonight may or may not include things that end up in his final proposal. So the reason that we're presenting these items tonight is to create awareness of some operational needs that have been raised by divisions, and also to seek your feedback. So we have 7 decision packages for tonight. We had 8 in your packet, and I apologize, I didn't get the facilities PDF into the PDF. So we're going to put that one on the 13th. So we'll go through the staff's going to go through the 7 that are listed here. We'll go through all of them at the end. We'll turn it over to the board for any questions and feedback that you have for us. So the first one is the making the ACT coordinator a full-time position. The cost of that in 2023 is $47,000, and the item is ongoing.
So commissioners, I'll give you just a brief overview of the ACT program. I want to make sure that you understand what that is. The ACT program is a novel South County Fire community education program teaching the use of antidote, CPR, and tourniquet. And we've provided this life-saving education to over 10,000 community members. Very proud of that fact. And most of those have been educated by our ACT coordinator. And so the ACT program is a really great entry point to inform our community of all of our South County Fire education programs, much so because of the fact that this particular program, the ACT program, engages with elected officials, educators in our community, and the folks who don't normally take advantage of our education programs. So our ACT coordinator is currently a full-time employee, but 50% supported under a grant program. And that grant terminates the end of 2022. So we're looking to fulfill a multi-year plan, whereas this year, or beginning in 2023, the ACT coordinator would be funded fully by South County Fire as a full-time employee. And those increase in hours dedicated to the ACT program, because the current grant doesn't provide funding for the ACT program, the additional hours would allow us to outreach our non-English speaking residents of our community and reach diverse cultures in our community. And so with this decision package request, the ACT coordinator will be able to increase our community partnerships and provide additional support for our outreach activities. Do you have any questions specifically about that I could try to answer for you now?
Commissioner Chan? You're on mute, just like me.
So what's the total compensation for this ACT director? He's doing just half of them as ACT, but what's the other thing that he or she does? Maybe you can even name the employee name so I know what's
Mr. Chan, this is Chief O. This is your question for Chief Fitzgerald. Do you want to know what other activities besides specific to ACT the employee who works for South County provides? Is that the question? Okay.
Yeah, 47 is not his full salary, just the ACT portion of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, so 50% funded by South County Fire provides for education. As it's the ACT program is really 100% of the work under the South County Fire budget authority to employ that 50%. The other 50% is performing the community connection calls, which is a specific grant under the Verdant program. That program at the end of this year gets reworked, and that work is attributed in a different way through existing personnel. So the grant itself goes away.
Yeah, I think that, well, I want to point out two things. Number one, I'm still supporting this ACT program as really helpful, useful. But I will point out to, again, Verdant, only give 3 years start the program, then we have to, fund it the other way. So is there any way we can ask the Verdant to continue, funding this program if they find that's such a useful to the community?
We certainly continue to develop relationships with Verdant Health and other granting agencies within our community, and certainly building relationships under this. Our proposal as a full-time ACT coordinator will develop even further relationships and grow those relationships even that we have with Verdant Health greater than we have today. We're certainly exploring those options, but like I said, this program, the Community Connection Calls, is being reworked because our multi-year plan has that terminating the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Farnahoff.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Chief if you could go a little bit into the program about the effectiveness in the community, how it's balanced against, let's say, CPR programs and so forth, and if any other agencies have modeled what you're doing and expanded it across Puget Sound and any other location.
Yeah, certainly, great question, and I can give you my limited answer, but provide you with a more informed response from our community outreach manager later. But yes, in fact, not only are other agencies or other communities modeling this, but also our ACT coordinator is providing that train the trainer education to these other agencies within our community and within other communities. We've been able to educate folks in this online format that we wouldn't have probably even contemplated were it not for the pandemic. So hard to say, but yes, we've had some benefit as a result of the pandemic, and probably wouldn't have been anywhere near 10,000 folks trained in this. And the ACT program is about a 45-minute, we bill it as an hour, but it's a 45-minute program that teaches how to treat members of our community who are in need of narcotic antagonists. That's the antidote portion of the ACT, the A in the ACT. And CPR is certainly one that people just gravitate towards. They want that education. It's been really great to educate our city leaders and our business owners in CPR through this very brief online format, although it works very well in person as well. And we have seen the results of that within our community, whereas people have been trained in ACT and they've been performing CPR out in our community. And so we do see the fruitful benefits of that. And of course, tourniquet is something, unfortunately, we've seen within our own communities, the devastation that comes from traumatic injuries, where a tourniquet can literally provide life-saving intervention. So I'll certainly provide you a more informed answer to your question, but that's a brief overview.
Thank you, Chief. And I can only just say from my personal experience, having been in the pilot instructor program for the ACT, I think the community penetration that this program offers versus a standard CPR class, say, for example, 2 to 4 hours, it's very attractive. You can get more people on board. And it is something that I hope is populated all over Puget Sound, because it is a great concept and well done in piloting what you've done so far. So congratulations to everybody involved.
Agreed. Thank you for those comments.
Okay, the next item that we have is the Lake Serene Rescue Boat. This is a one-time item with a 2023 cost of $18,000.
Good evening, board. So I'll represent this decision package tonight for the operations division. This year, with board approval, a new boat was purchased for Lake Ballinger. That was boat 19. That was placed in service earlier this summer. Last year, during board discussions, we talked about other lakes in our service area that could use a small rescue boat. So I'm coming back tonight. We were going to ask for 2 boats last year. We pulled it back to just the one that we needed to replace. So this would be an additional boat to our fleet for the Lake Serene Station 23. This request is to purchase the same type of boat as the Ballinger boat for Lake Serene. And Lake Serene was chosen as it is the next most populated and recreated lake in our service area. This boat will be stored again at Station 23, which is right across from the public boat launch. Currently, the only water rescue equipment available at Station 23 is an inflatable type of paddleboard. This boat, if approved, will provide crews the best opportunity for immediate rescue on Lake Serene. As a reminder, these boats are operated by operational personnel. There's only a small amount of training that goes into the operation of them, and do not require a tech rescue responder to be on scene. So basically, the intent would be this would be on a small trailer. It would sit and store at Station 23 in a ready-to-go state, and then it could be pushed across the parking lot, down the gravel ramp, and be launched immediately into the lake for rescues. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Yes, these boats, what powers them? Is it a gas or battery electric or what?
So that's a great question. It's a 12-foot rigid hull inflatable boat, and it has a 20 horsepower 4-stroke engine. And then it additionally comes with a light-duty trailer.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Farnahoff?
Yeah, you mentioned that it does not require any special technical training, but could this capability along with the Ballinger boat actually be deployed as a strike team for other purposes as well within the RFA? Say, for example, you had some sort of plane crash, for example. I don't know, something like a small plane crashes into Puget Sound, which occurred here recently. Could it be also a multi-purpose? In other words, what I'm trying to drive at here is it's not just for Lake Serene. Is that correct?
It would be mostly for Lake Serene, as that we don't have a vehicle to tow this with the trailer.
Okay.
But just as a reminder, we do have Marine 16 down at the city of Edmonds Marina that would respond in the Puget Sound for us.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Chan.
You said stay in, but you said in the parking lot, and then you push it to the launch. Is that what you're saying?
It would be stored and secured inside the locked fire station. It would be pushed across the parking lot and down the ramp. So it's a fairly small boat. So it can be, with a small device that hooks to the hitch. A crew of 3 could easily move this trailer and boat and get it into the lake.
But you said it's stored in a fire in the shelter. Is that
Inside Station 23 in the apparatus bay next to the engine and the medic unit?
right? So inside station 23.
Yes, sir.
So how does that? Oh, Lake Serene. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the wrong thing. You just go across.
Oh.
Okay.
Were you thinking
Yeah,
Martha Lake?
the proximity is across the street.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Martha Lake. Okay, that's like,
Yeah. So
okay.
Martha Lake is covered by boat 21, which is a small
21.
inflatable boat on TR 21. But yeah, that would be too far to push a boat by hand. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
that's why that
Okay.
one's on the TR. So that covers Martha Lake.
What
So
about, what about Lake Stickney when David's out on his rubber
Yeah,
duck?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
that.
well, I'll be back next year looking for another one, maybe.
All right. They can see my dock. Okay.
I do have one more question. Would this be sourced as a brand new marine vessel, or is this being acquisition from, let's say, some surplus or second tier? I hate to use the word surplus, but you know what I'm going with. Some departments buy, they have overage or whatever, and that goes under availability.
Yeah, no, this would be a new purchase. There's a lot of safety concerns. As a matter of fact, the Ballinger Lake Boat 19 was still an in-service boat, but it had a patch over a seam. And we just didn't feel safe putting our personnel out in that type of situation with a boat that was patched on a seam. And so we've got one of these that we'll be doing away with as well, as it's not in service anymore. So I would be fearful to buy anything on the used market at this point. And with the way things are, you'd probably pay for a used one just about as much as a new one.
Yeah.
But might find it more available. So this last the Lake Ballinger boat, I think, took about 6 months to get. So it would be new.
Thank you, Chief.
Any further questions? All right, I don't see any. Thank you, Chief, for the report. Thank you,
All right.
CFO Bothwell.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, the next one is Marine 16 electronics upgrade. This is a one-time item in 2023. The cost is $38,000. I believe this is Chief Isotalo again.
It is. Let's talk more about boats. So this is for Marine 16. As the board members that were here last year in the budget process will recall, this decision package came forward. And upon closer inspection, we discovered that staff had underestimated the market price for the products and also the high installation costs for marine type of electronics. So it was decided for 2022 to complete all of the work possible within the budgeted amount. The FLIR requested for 2023, which is, there was 3 components. This is the third and remaining component that the prior decision package and budget didn't cover. So we're back asking for funds to be able to put the final piece in, which would be the FLIR. So it'd be to purchase it and install it into Marine 16. And that would complete our suite of technology upgrades for the boat. I think that's all that I have. Yes.
Any questions, Commissioner Kenny?
Chief Isotelo, help me remember, the boat itself was purchased on a grant years ago and was required to be a regional asset, as I recall. And at one time, the Edmonds Police Department shared some costs with us, although it doesn't seem like they've been sharing many costs recently. I'm thinking of engines, new engines we bought last year, the year before, sometime recently. So is anybody sharing any costs with us on this regional asset?
Commissioner Kenny, I'm going to ask Chief Hovis. He's kind of our boat historian and
Oh.
City of Edmonds stuff to answer this one for us.
That's probably why he wears the pirate hat.
Well, Chuck Kane, that vessel is named after, though was a volunteer firefighter and owned the hardware store in downtown Edmonds, would say yes. He would be very proud that the City of Edmonds was able to acquire that post 9/11 as part of a grant. It was a matching grant, and about 65% was provided by the federal government. The balance was provided by the City of Edmonds, and then also what was the Edmonds Fire Foundation that Chuck Kane started. So you're right, Commissioner Kenny, that 10-year requirement has now expired for that to be a regional resource, but it certainly still is. In regards to your primary question, the Edmonds Fire Department had a dive rescue team with members of that still in this organization. That was done in coordination with the Edmonds Police Department many fire chiefs ago, post regionalization with Fire District 1, and many police chiefs ago. Current police chief Michelle Bennett and I have just been sharing information back and forth. She would like to get some of her force, her law enforcement, sergeants and patrol officers trained to back up to be able to actually pilot that boat or be deckhands to work with our team. And she's also considering a budget proposal in this year's budget cycle to reinvigorate their dive team. When we talk about dive, this is about body recovery. Once somebody is not savable, this is essentially a law enforcement scene, and she's looking at doing that. So as part of our decision package in relation to that boat, she is making her own as well. So we'll have more conversations about that, but they're not taking the boat out, Commissioner Kenny, like our folks are. They just don't have, there's 2 people left, is my understanding, out of all of the personnel that still are able to operate that. And frankly, if they're going to do that, it needs to be in coordination with us as the agency that took over the title, if I recall, 2 years post merger, or the 20-year contract for service, approximately 2012. And, thinking long term, I hope Edmonds joins our RFA, so a vessel like that can be on an apparatus replacement schedule. So hopefully there's the history of it. So thank you.
So, but Chief, the bottom line is there's nobody that's going to go in with us on any of these expenses.
At this point, no. There has been some indications because, quite frequently there'll be dive issues up at the city of Mukilteo off the Lighthouse Park there. And, Everett Marine 1 and 2. So there's 2 vessels that one is more police, one is more fire, but police kind of, as I understand it, owns both of it, at least from their perception. Will get dispatched because they're pretty close. Coast Guard goes responding, but we always deploy our unit as well. So again, for other opportunities for non-contract cities or those that haven't considered joining an RFA, that sort of regional resource that's needed. We've within the summertime had 3 drownings that I'm aware of divers or people off of the Mukilteo Park, and having a resource down there, I think would be great. The NOAA site is being acquired by the Port of Everett. There's some great opportunities, but for us, nobody yet willing to partner. That is the answer to the question, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chan? You're on mute.
No, I actually just answered part of my question. How far did we go, in cover? And also, maybe it's for this new commissioner too, like, can you refresh our memory? How often do you get a call? And I know Bo, even though you need to, continue run it once in a while, and then also you have annual maintenance and all this stuff. So right now it's station 17 crew is the one who crew that whole through the
Yeah, Commissioner.
staff the boat. Yeah, and then also the boat's right on the water, right? Is that?
That is correct. It is berthed at the Port of Edmonds in its own
Right.
special spot. And as far as the maintenance or the fuel of the boat, that's our burden cost. I believe last year there was 6 true responses that are either rescues or putting out, a large fire. There's millions of dollars of assets at the Port of Edmonds to include live-ons
Right.
throughout the year. So it's protected by the breakwater there, Commissioner Chan. So, and we might have had a couple more questions in there, so I don't want to make sure I missed anything in there.
Yeah,
And it's called Marine 16 because it is closer to Station 17, but typically the first unit or battalion would try to get onto the scene, and then Station 16 would come down. There was kind of an order of events. It's historical from the city of Edmonds. Plus, Chuck Kane was a volunteer actually with me still at the old Station 6, which became 16 at Five Corners. So it was a little bit of a shout out to Chuck Kane and the volunteer group at the time. That's how I got numbered.
Okay, but my other question is that how effective that is if there's a houseboat on fire. The 16 is not able to do it all by itself, right?
No, I mean, if there's a boat fire,
boat on fire.
there's a boat on fire, it's going to be attacked mostly from the ground area. I think the best example, commissioners that were here at the time, you remember there was a boat where basically another boat hit it, and there was 4 or 5 people in the water, and our crews, A shift at Station 17 at the time, Captain Torrey, firefighter Almeida, and firefighter paramedic File went out, and with the skiff off of the ferry that's sitting behind Commissioner Daniels' backdrop there, was able to get everybody plucked out of the water and get them in. So a couple transports required. Boats burn, and they burn fast. And having been into ones that burned down to the water line there, or other things that happen, like when all of the cover on every cover at the Port of Edmonds collapsed in the winter of 1996, usually these things are going, to answer your question, down to shoreline, across the water over to Kingston or to the north. It's been to Hat Island, it goes to Edmonds, or it goes to Woodby. That's really its area of operation, weather permitting. And I can't recall any other spots it's been to off the top of my head. Devo, any? Nope, that's about it.
But without a boat, like you said Mukilteo has their own boat.
Mukilteo does not have their own boat, and neither does the Shoreline Fire Department, because they don't have a station down in Richmond Beach. So when you look at Everett, has 2 boats. There's a boat at South Woodby, a boat at Central, a boat across the water in the Kingston area, and then you've got the Seattle Fire boat. That's where we're at. The Coast Guard is, obviously part of it, and the Navy, but that's what we've got for assets.
Well, my question: how quickly can they come to rescue? When I say the boat on fire, not necessarily at the pier, but it will be outside type of thing. So how quickly can they come and help?
So a drive time if Station 17 is in service, drive time out of the station, down Main, left Dayton, get to deploy the boat 7 to 8 minutes, and then in the water and go.
Yeah, but if there's a boat on fire,
if there's a boat on fire, it's generally going to burn down the water line and sink. That's the rule of boating.
Yeah,
for sure. It has firefighting capability, but it's truly a, distressed vessel, a vessel that's taking on water, a vessel that's overturned, a kayaker in the water, a stand-up paddleboarder in the water. Those sort of things are more typical responses, or a diver in distress where we need to get out into that area because we can't swim against it. And the undercurrent and tides prevent you from getting really to do anything. So those are the key incidences. And our data team here was able to put up an average of 19 dispatches over the last 3-year period. Is that correct, team? Per year, 19 per year over the last 3 years. And last year was a little slower year. I mean, then COVID kept down the boating season.
Okay, so you're thinking the fireboat is the one that right in waterfront, right next to the Ivers? Is that fireboat? from
That is
Seattle?
the two Seattle fireboats that are down
Yeah.
there currently. Yes, that is the true fireboat of the closest area to us.
So yeah, okay, now, yeah, boat, they sink really fast. Believe me, I know, I saw it.
You say you've seen it
myself.
firsthand. Yep,
Yeah,
definitely.
my boat, the boat in there. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So this conversation is the reason why I'd asked Chief Hovis some time ago to explore adding a grant writer, was to try and help offset the cost of a new boat, because Marine 16 is coming up on end of life in the next 4 to 5 years. And so we need to figure out how to share that cost, that burden. Those are expensive toys. And to the point of the data team, yes, it would be nice if there was some sort of Power BI presentation that we could click on and click through and see the calls for service. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So are
Well,
there any other?
No,
Go
I would support it if they let commission to do the water skiing behind it.
All right, any CFO Bothwell, you have another item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have 4 additional items. These last 4 are safety related, and the chief wanted to say a few words before we kick those off.
Okay, commissioners, we have a special treat, at least for me tonight, and I hope you think it is too. We've got Battalion Chief Devon Ogerkow, who was kind enough to accept an assignment to our Battalion Chief of Health and Safety position in August of 21. So back in August of 21, and I'll add that Devon was on the line before I was. He got hired the year before I graduated from high school. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's been our health and safety person around this county for a long time. He leads our county hazardous materials team. Our department's team is a great resource, but I gave him a challenge. I said, Devon, you don't know about the 21st century white paper. I want you to look through these metrics and lens, and I want you to envision an organization that is going to be at the cutting edge of making sure that we have sustainability, that health and safety of our firefighters and employees is number one. You explore partnerships to see if you can assist with that, use technology that's out there and the data so that we don't have anyone not be able to go home at the end of the day. Because we know, and we've seen, commissioners, the rate of cancer in the fire service, it greatly exceeds the norm. And I gave him another challenge, and he knew who my aunt was and said, I hate to have lost a member of my family on the job at Seattle Fire from cancer. And I started naming names, and he's been around longer than me. So these next 4 decision packages are from the heart. And I will say, I intend not to pull these back. And I hope that you support those going forward. So no pressure, Chief, but you're up. I would like you to present to the commission these 4 important items. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Pretty good, okay. Which is the first one?
So the first one is tactical functional movement screenings. It's a one-time cost of $16,750.
All right. Well, thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to share important safety and wellness initiatives tonight. Okay, tactical functional movement screening. It's a program to assess firefighter muscles, joints, and movement patterns through reliable and valid testing tools by a certified physical therapist. The goal is to identify areas that are weak, reduce injuries, and improve performance. When we look at our injury rates across the country, 50% of them involve musculoskeletal injuries or joint type injuries. In South County, we average about 60%. So it comes to reason that we should have a comprehensive testing system in place to assess injury risk with regard to muscle and joints. This would be really beneficial. The screenings, they assess the firefighter's joints in the scenario where they're wearing bunker gear, SCBA, carrying tools. We want to measure their joints when they're under loads, whether it be carrying ladders or people. They're going to assess for muscle strength, flexibility, range of motion, coordination, and balance. The screenings are scientifically proven to identify potential weak areas, and they're used by fire departments everywhere, special forces, professional sports team, to include the U.S. Olympic team. Testing would be conducted by Engineered Sports, which is a local sports clinic here in Everett. And this would be a voluntary program. The results were confidential between Engineered Sports and the member of the department. As it would go, the member receives, after they complete their assessment, the member receives a written plan as well as videos of exercises that will strengthen the muscles and joints. I have researched this with other departments that use the program. They say it's highly effective. And speaking with L&I or Washington L&I, the consultants actually really back it up and say this is a really good program. The cost is $50 per employee. Our goal, because it's voluntary, is to get 50% in year one and evaluate the program for future use as a preventative approach to reducing injuries. Any questions?
Yes, Chief.
Commissioner.
What happens if the person tests and their joints and muscles aren't up to scratch? Then how does it affect their job?
So once again, it's all this is confidential. And the idea is that we're going to encourage that employee to listen to what those specialists have to offer them. Our hope is that they'll follow through on the program that they're advising them on. That's something we would not know, but it's really advantageous for that person because there's no pressure to follow through.
Okay, so I mean, they go there, they get tested, they know the results, we don't, you don't.
Correct.
And but if they're like me, they probably won't do what the doctor says, so.
Well, once again, this is the first of the initiative, and how we follow up, we just really encourage people. And maybe eventually down the road, this would be something that we lead towards more mandatory, especially with our new people that we hire on.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely see a need. There are a little bit more about, there's particular machines that they get on and they do the test to see how strong they are in this area, that area, or how much pressure on the joints of these machines they're getting into?
Most of them they don't use machines, they use devices versus a machine, and they go through 7 movement patterns. And once again, they're looking at that flexibility, that endurance to hold that pattern. They're looking at the symmetry of the muscles, how that joint actually moves in relation to what they're asked to do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Continue, Chief.
Continue, okay. Next one you have on there is annual fit testing.
The next one is Ready Rebound for $80,000, and that's an ongoing cost.
Okay. You guys, this is a wonderful program, so bear with me. Ready Rebound is a medical concierge service that uses a sports medicine approach to bring our employees the highest level of medical care. The goal is to ensure that there's no obstacles to the employee's healing process and ensuring the quality of care and a quicker return to work. And I'll speak more to that here in a minute. It is open to all employees. That includes all your family members. It includes retirees. Okay. They do have a focus on, they do cover cancer, mental well-being, but their focus is on orthopedic type injuries, which is, if you think about it, that's a big portion of what firefighters, or at least for firefighters, experience an orthopedic injury that may require surgery that's much more extensive. Okay, so I want to take you through the process for a minute to show you what Rebound does. So the example I'm going to give you is this. I get injured. It doesn't make a difference if it's on the job or off the job. And let's say I hurt my back, right? I pick up the phone, I call a 1-800 number, and I talk to a rebound specialist. Those rebound specialists are 24/7, and they have to be a certified athletic trainer that's taking the intake information from you, okay? From there, within 24 hours to 48 hours, most of these are less than 24 hours, you are going to see a specialist that is in your area that you're hurt. So if it's your back, you're only going to see an orthopedic that specializes in that, not a foot, okay? Not a general practitioner. You only see a specialist in your area. They're rebound certified, okay? These physicians keep open appointments just for rebound customers every day, okay? So that they can get you in really quick, okay? From there, you see the specialist. And two things typically happen with orthopedics. You're either going to go based on the results, you're either going to go to physical therapy, or you may do physical therapy and an MRI. Okay. Physical therapy is guaranteed within 48 hours. An MRI in Washington State with rebound is 5 to 7 days, which through normal healthcare means is 21 days. Okay, so the idea is that we're expediting that person through their medical treatment process, right? And think about this, the way I described to you right there was, think about an athlete who gets injured on the field, professional sports. As soon as they're carted off, what are they being done? But where are they going to? They're going to a specialist, they're getting some x-rays or MRI because they want to know what's going wrong with you and start you down that course of treatment as expeditiously as they can. That's the concept that Rebound stands behind, okay? So let me jump back into this. Once you're down that track, you have a Rebound person or a navigator who always checks back with you on your care, always checking to see what's the quality of care you're receiving. Are you happy with it? Is there anything that's standing in your way, right? When we're dealing with L&I claims, those can be very long. Well, Rebound has a direct portal into L&I. So they can move your treatment and your assessments much quicker than the traditional means of medical care can, right? A key note is that Rebound returns workers 30% faster than traditional means of recovery methods, okay? What does that mean for us? It means that we got to return our investment through savings, through L&I claims, through premiums, and overtime costs, right? Central Pierce, who is one of our comparable departments in size, they've been using Rebound for 7 years, as well as numerous departments there, but they're the longest one. They report an annual savings of $350,000, and their premiums for that are about $75,000. In my survey of the membership there, I actually surveyed their people to check for quality care. Absolutely, everybody said we love Rebound, and 96% of their employees use them. Okay, so I hope that's kind of a gauge to tell you how good this program is. I can say that Marysville just signed on to this. The whole city of Everett is looking at this program currently. Surfer is looking at it very hard. If not, probably I haven't approved it yet. And L&I supports this program also. I've had their injury consultants in here, and they speak very highly of it. Locked in at $8 per year with the intent to renew to see how well we do.
Commissioners, did you catch this, Chief Ovis? Did you catch that last part, Devon? I think your mic was cutting
I'm
out.
losing my audio.
Okay. You're back at it
I'm gonna
now.
have to reload. Sorry. Is it working? Okay. Sorry, but my messing around with my computer. I got to get my.
So with that, as we're working through that IT issue, Chief Daniels, I think is that everything on that one, Devon?
I'm not, it's not working.
We're ready for questions, I think, at this point. Chair.
Are there any questions for Commissioner Chan?
Sorry,
you have
folks,
your
I'm
hand
getting
up.
some help here.
You're on mute, Chan.
Able to answer my questions. Your title is health and safety. Is that correct? So is the mental health under your ground? Is that part of your responsibility? No?
Chief Ovis, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, the mental health is a number of people's purview here at South County Fire. Part of our HR division with Director Hollenbach's here, and we have our peer support tag, a number of different fundamentals. But yes, Chief Ogerkow is part of that team, but this is just specific to thus far Rebound, talking more about musculoskeletal injuries and coming back from injuries on or off duty, Commissioner Chan.
So
is it good? Okay, so So, so the responsibility here is really for job-related injury. Is that correct?
On or
Physical
off
injury?
duty. Yeah, on or off duty, it covers both for the rebound to try to get someone back to
Right.
work at a 30% faster rate. But it's especially for on duty injuries for L&I, which can be very cumbersome and take some time and difficulty. It's really sort of like a fast pass, if you will, or yes, flying Southwest, the A group, to get on the plane quicker to recovery is really what rebound is.
Yeah, no, but I know that when he mentioned that it doesn't matter, it's on, it's duty and off duty thing, but then he mentioned L&I. It make a huge difference what the cost is. If you go and play soccer and you're injured, right, that's covered from L&I. Okay. All right, thanks.
Welcome.
Commissioner Kenny, did you have your hand up?
Yes. And so I understand the rationale for the program for employees and how there's a direct benefit to South County Fire in terms of, as the paperwork indicates, trying to get employees back to work, healing more quickly, and helping with the L&I. I grasp all of that. The piece I don't understand is family members and retirees get to use it. Now, there may be an indirect benefit to them as part of our health program that wherever they're now working or have their second jobs or other jobs or what have you, that they get back to work and that benefits third-party other employers. Or there is, better satisfaction for our employees that their injured family member is, back at their job as an indirect benefit, but that's not a direct benefit to South County Fire. The direct benefit is from our employees getting back to work, and the nature of our work is very physical and thus a larger amount of injuries than, say, perhaps some more sedentary professions. So I'm wondering, is there some ability to save some money on the $80,000 a year by not having immediate family members and retirees as part of the program?
Commissioner Kenny, I'll take this one. Really what Rebound does with the family and the retirees is an add-on. We're not paying for those individuals. So we're paying for the uniform personnel only. So at 300-ish uniform personnel, it's about less than $300 annually for our employees that benefit the most from it. Really, they just have chosen to provide that service to the employees' family members as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. CFO
Okay.
Bothwell.
All right, the next to last one is fit testing for $32,000, and this is also ongoing. I think Devon is back with us.
Do you want us to have him take over your computer, CFO Bothwell?
He can take mine and sit in the hot seat.
Okay, I'm back for a moment. Everybody hear me now? Sorry.
Oh, your mic is up, Devon. And you're on mute.
Okay, you can tell I need some tech training. Okay, so thanks you guys for filling in for me. All right, the third one that we're going to talk about here is the annual fit testing. Annual fit testing is a procedure where all the firefighters must don their respiratory mask and be fit tested to ensure a good seal of contaminants. So an example for those who don't know is this would be an example of a SCBA mask that everybody has to be fit tested. If a firefighter has to wear an N95 mask, they have to be certified that it is fit tested. Basically, it will keep the contaminants out. Now, all of our firefighters require those two tests But if you are a rescue technician, they have additional masks. They require 4 tests, and a hazmat person on the team requires 3 tests. So what I'm trying to say is this totals up to be a lot. On average, it's 785 fit tests that has to be done, and it has to be done because the WAC requires it. So WAC 296-305, that's the Washington Administrative Code for firefighters. We can't get away from this, and it has to be done annually. Okay, how do we get this all done? We spend 8 days, 4 initial days, 4 makeup days, trying to get over 330 firefighters through this process. We don't get everybody. And so we spend more additional days throughout the year setting up fit testing dates to get these people through. Okay, we don't have a choice. Okay. The way our past has been to meet this challenge that's really time consuming is we've had to enlist the help of the training division. Okay, and this year with all the academies going on and all the people we're hiring, our training division cannot assist. They are so task saturated. It's really incredible. My hats go off to them. So I had to rely on trying to get people on overtime off duty to help do these fit tests. Okay, that was proved to be a very much a challenge. It's not reliable, and it's certainly not. It's a very inefficient use of time trying to schedule and do all this and get people to come in, and the training that's required with that. To improve efficiency and reliability, I propose that we have a company come in and conduct fit testing just on the initial 8 days, and South County Fire will conduct all the follow-up ones that are missed, plus all the new academy ones that come through. Okay, I've gotten a couple quotes. The fit test on average is about $40 per test. The costs are only related to the number of fit tests that they do. So if you were to look at our first go around of 8, we're going to probably average about 60%. This year we achieved 58% on the first 8 days. And so I still have 131 people to get for the remainder of the year. So that's that other 42%. So this is a very time-consuming process. And so what I'm looking for is to get some help in here to meet compliance, at least on those first 8 days. We won't realize the full 32% because we can't get, they won't be there on that first 8 days. Any questions?
Commissioner Fernahoff, you have your hand up.
So I see you've chosen Northwest Response, Tom Bliss's company. How did you come across this company, and what's your criteria for using them?
It was the criteria was, could you quantify and qualify on all these various masks that we utilize? So you had to be able to you had to be able to test on all those.
Is this right now a single source acquisition that you propose to make an alignment with, or have you got a competitive bid from other companies?
Well, based on what your response is tonight, I'll get more competitive bids. There's not a lot of companies that do mobile testing.
Correct. And you'll probably be in great hands. It's just that fit testing, especially during COVID, became a really big money maker, and there should be more companies out there that are able to assist. And I know, and I'm speaking from a historical point of view of the dinosaurs. I have old fire helmets up here. I swear I wore one of them at one time. Fit testing we did in-house, but that's back when everybody shared a mask. Now everybody's got individual masks and so forth. So I appreciate your position, and definitely, if we can throw you some support, but I would just ask of you to make sure that you do your due diligence and look at the different resources that are available. I'm not even sure, but there could be some specialists in other departments that are not as heavily tasked that may be able to lend some assistance from agency to agency versus going into the private sector necessarily. So just a recommendation, just throwing something out there.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. CFO Bothwell.
All right, thank you. Our final item tonight is rescue solo washers. There's 6 of these units for a one-time cost of $240,000 in 2023.
All right. I'm trying to get my notes on here, but I switched over, so I'm just going to have to just move over. Oh, thank you, of course. All right. The Rescue Solar Decon washers I'm going to share with you tonight, it's a washer that would be similar to a commercial grade dishwasher, but this new technology is very effective and very efficient at cleaning SCBAs. That's the packs that we wear with our bottles, our masks, boots, glove, helmets, and all of our tools. Any of our bunker gear we put in extractors, so that would not be counted. What I'm talking about here tonight. Okay. I'm introducing you these washers because it's my effort to reduce firefighter exposure to carcinogens that or products that cause cancer from fires and hazardous materials. Today, our fires burn hotter and faster. You go back 30 years from now, when they did studies, they showed that the average person to escape a structure fire was 17 minutes. They burn slower, right? Not as hot. Today, the studies show that a person only has 3 to 4 minutes to get out. Okay. In addition, these structure fires are releasing large quantities of chemicals, with over 100 that are cancer-causing agents. These chemicals saturate our bunker gear, our helmets, our gloves, you name it, our boots, and it places the firefighter at a greater risk of developing cancer. To support this, you can look at NFPA studies that show that firefighters have a much higher rate than the general public, and cancer is one of the leading causes of death in firefighters. Okay. Currently, to reduce our exposure, when we get this gear saturated, is we wash it with soap and water. It's a hand process. Okay. Pretty typical what most fire departments do to reduce the contamination. Okay. It's not as effective as what I'm going to show you. It's time consuming, and it places the firefighter at additional risk and exposure when they're doing the cleaning process. Okay. In addition to, if the equipment's not cleaned really well, think about it. The next person wearing it, or that same person, when they're putting it on, especially with that SCBA, we are causing an additional exposure to that firefighter or cross-contamination. Okay. So what I want to do is, because I know we're looking at a big item here, I want to show you a quick video. It's about 1.5 minutes of showing you, demonstrating you of what this decon washer looks like and how it functions. Oh, Chris is going to play it for you. You can go ahead and stop it there. Thank you. So I'll kind of overview the benefits of this decon washer. It reduces firefighter exposure to contaminants during the cleaning process. We know that when it goes through there, that equipment is cleaned properly. When I went down to Central Paris recently, we took 3 sets of SCBAs, because what you saw is a European style bottles. We can do 3 sets of full SCBAs without having to tear them completely down. Just set them in there. These were ones that had been hand washed with soap and water, and we ran it through the Solo wash machine. And when it was done, I looked at the water and I went, it was dark. And I went, you've got to be kidding me. These jets get all the crevices through there, and they just really do a great job of cleaning. Not only do they clean really well, and we know our equipment's clean, is that it's with the efficiency, it's an 8-minute wash time for SCBAs. We can load it with 3 of them in there. And any other equipment's only 3 minutes. That's far more efficient than it was for us when we hand wash. So it reduces our out of service time and improves our operational readiness.
Okay. The specific washer is the only washer on the market that is approved by our Scott manufacturer. And lastly, once again, because I work so closely with L&I mean, they've been in here multiple times doing consults because I take advantage of that. It's very much recommended by them. They highly recommend it. The proposal is to purchase 6 of these washers and have them strategically placed in RFA stations. So we have surveyed for stations 10, 11, 15, 18, 21, and 76. And the cost, I gave you the high end because I want to make sure, because the way things go around here is $40,000 each, which includes installation and training. Any questions?
You said the current process was hand washing, and that takes about how long?
If you actually take a pack down and you break it down, so totally strip everything to get on all the crevices, probably at least 20 minutes per
And
unit.
then
And that's not putting
that-
it back together.
So then putting it back together, what's the additional
Probably
time?
30 minutes to do the whole thing.
So you're looking at about an hour total.
Well,
Tear it
no,
down and put it
about
back together.
per pack, I'd say 30, you could do it in 30 minutes.
Okay. And then that washing machine can do 2 packs at a time?
3.
3?
Mhm.
Over
8
10
minutes.
8
8 minutes.
Okay.
That's the longest setting. Everything else, every other tool, because we have helmets to clean, tools, there's various types of things, 3 minutes.
So if you're one firefighter were to clean all their gear, about how long would that take to clean and put back together?
If it was just one doing that company and doing an engine company,
No, doing just one. I'm just trying to get a baseline of
yeah, I would say that
one
in most
firefighter doing their own
fires that
gear.
if you actually have to, you're breaking things down to clean it because it's saturated, it's at least going to be an hour.
Okay. That's what I was looking for. So
Right.
whereas this machine would cut that down to what, 20 minutes?
Yeah, easy.
Okay.
And the thing is, we know it's being cleaned consistently and properly. Remember, the cleanliness of that is only based on the person who's doing it.
True. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I just recently, I visited the station 21. They have something, I thought there's using something to drying and all that stuff. Is that some station already have some kind of similar to this?
No, we have nothing like this. Those are extractors for bunker gear and bunker gear drying only. This covers all the other pieces of equipment.
Okay. Now you mentioned that if someone else wear it, I thought everybody have their own personal. You don't wear somebody else mask or a bunker gear, right? You
Correct.
So because when you mentioned somebody else would catch it, so I didn't understand that part.
Well, what it is a lot of times when firefighters are dragging stuff off, they're touching things with their hands. This process requires them to load it into the gloves and wash it in, minimize their contact and just put it in the machine. They literally put it on a basket and then put the basket in there. So they're minimizing contact. The one thing we have with cancer, there's no smoking gun that says this firefighter's got it from here. It's an accumulation. These are small exposures that you get over time. For the most part, but when they look at these studies for cancer.
So it's curiously how logistical. You only put in 6 stations, so you get it. How often do you wash your gear? Is that every time?
They should be after every fire.
Every fire.
Every fire you're supposed to. That's best practices.
Okay, so if your station don't have after fire, you go. You put your gear in that station and wash it.
Yes. And
okay, but we don't really have that much of fire going on anyway, right? I mean, not every day, or how often do we? Maybe.
Correct, but also I didn't expand on this. So when you think about, we do live fire for all of them, our employees. That equipment, when we send it up to live fire, the training comes back completely saturated with hydrocarbons and the things that we use to burn. They don't have all the cancer causing agents, but it's another way for us to maintain our packs, get them turned around for the next person to use. That's just another kind of side benefit with this. I know that training division is not here to speak to it, but I remember witnessing when they would come back with these packs just completely black. They literally spent days cleaning them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so what about, so when they come back, they're cleaning their gear and then they get a call. What, they got us 2 sets?
That's correct, sir. Every member of this department has 2 sets of bunker gear. So one can be washing and they're ready to go, and the other one.
Okay. What about maintenance for this machine over the 10-year period or whatever his lifespan is? What expect maintenance costs besides the initial investment? It's like anything else.
It's a great question. Life expectancy is 20 years on these washers, and they recommend they get a biannual maintenance every other year. And I put that in the budget of about $5,000 for the 6 machines.
Okay, so the fireman, unless he's gone out, he has the time to clean the gear. And what else are they going to be doing there in the station? And yeah, this is convenient, but we'd all like all the conveniences to make life easier and less work or something. But
well, this I know that 34 years in the fire department. When I came back from fires, I was ready to go on the next call and out the door. I worked station 15, and you went. That was pretty constant when we averaged 20 alarms a day out there. So you're still going on calls. That's why we have the second gear. Doesn't mean you're getting to sit around. We recommend actually when you get back from a fire is that you get your gear going in the washer, get your new set out, and you take a shower. It's called shower within the hour. It's best practices. So there's a lot of things that are still occurring. The report writing and preparing for the next call, because you just never know, right? But the whole point of this really, it's about reducing cancer in that potential in firefighters. Once again, small doses over time. And this is really the most technological advanced machine out there that helps reduce that.
yeah, yeah, okay. Well, I guess, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Commissioner Farnahoff.
Yeah, I'll put my hand back down now that I realized that I always leave it up. Chief Ogurka, I have a question for you. Has a mobile consideration been introduced into your thought process as well? It seems that we have a rehab unit that goes out. Could there be a trailered unit that also deploys as well for a major fire and begins that process earlier? So we not only rehab personnel, but we rehab equipment as well.
Yes, I looked at the mobile rehab thing, and once again, now it's a staffing thing. Mobile is really great. The upfront costs are a lot more to have that versus having something stationary, and the equipment arrives there. They're in their areas of response. They're doing all their cleaning and processing, ready to go on another call in their area.
Mm-hmm. And
so there's pros and cons. Sorry.
So you feel very strongly that fixed locations are more important than, let's say, deploying a unit to a station or a house that's already, went to a fire. All of our other stations haven't gone to a fire, but this one necessarily, would benefit by having a fixed asset. Of course, 3 in the morning, we're not going to have somebody shuttle around to all of the stations, but maybe deploying to the fire might make some sense.
And once again, that's you can look at that as a pro and a con. If we have let's say 4 engine companies that need cleaning of their SCBAs, well, now they're all waiting on one mobile unit to be in a certain place to get their stuff serviced versus getting back to their stations and during that turnover much quicker and in their response area for readiness. So yes, a mobile option does have its pros, but it also has its cons too.
Very fine. Thank you.
Commissioner Tiaflak.
I just want to say that I'm in full support of all the health and safety measures that have been discussed so far today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, BC Ogre Cow. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Ogre Co, it's all good.
Ogre Cow. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much for your time tonight. I know I took up a big chunk of it.
If I could, Chair and Commissioners, just to summarize, we did put a lot of careful consideration on this, the scope and size of the package, and then also where those assets might be placed at. I appreciate the comments about mobile too. Thinking, Commissioner, you've got those fire helmets behind you, and many of us entered the fire service in a time we didn't have 2 sets of gear. And now we have 2 sets of gear. We certainly didn't have 2 helmets, and there wasn't always SCBAs for everybody either. But this is about those parts of your body, the focal points where transmittables are coming in. It's the hood, it's your jugulars, it's up in your helmet, it's the linings of them, it's the pack that you can't clean well enough, and the next crew can come in and walk in the door and go, "You had a fire last night." Then the next crew comes in if it's C shift, and they go, "Oh, you had a fire last night." "No, that was 2 days ago." And it might take 5 to 7 days for that smell to get out of the cab of the resource that's rolling down the street. So I've got sweaty feet. Those socks, those boots, you can't throw them in the extractor and clean them. You can't clean them well enough. This is about the whole ensemble and the self-contained breathing apparatus itself, which is that asset that we don't give a different one to everybody. I can't count how many times I've washed my helmet as good as I could, left it on the deck to dry while I got in my second set of gear, and left that SCBA that I washed off with a scrub brush and left on the deck to dry until the next fire came in, and then put it back on the rack to roll on the next incident. We don't carry those as backup. This is about thinking these packages, about thinking of the next level of cutting edge to make sure that our most valuable asset, our people, can serve the public and come into this profession healthy in and healthy out. So appreciate the comments tonight, and just appreciate giving an opportunity for Battalion to present to the board. See, it wasn't that bad, even with some technical difficulties. So good job, Devo. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, I've got a budget related update for you and then some next steps.
CFO Bothwell, can we take a 10-minute break? All right, we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break. I am showing 9:29, and we'll just make it even 9:40 when we come back. Thank you. Document off. All right, so it is 9:40. We will continue with CFO Bothwell.
All right, thank you, Chair. Take a black.
We saw part of your PowerPoint presentation, then it went black. There we go.
Okay. I won't share that. It's the last slide anyway. I have one budget related update. That is that the Snohomish County has issued the report of assessed value change since last year by taxing jurisdiction, and the AV, the change in assessed value, or AV, for 2023 taxes is an increase of 47%. So during the revenue capacity reporting back in July, I noted that we needed a little over 12% to be able to access all of our bank capacity for property tax. So this is just confirmation that we will be able to access all of the bank capacity if the board chooses. The other thing that was on that slide was just next steps. So next week we'll be back with 9 more decision packages for that presentation. And then on October 4th, the presentation of the chief's preliminary budget is scheduled for you all. So that's it. And I thank you.
Thank you, CFO Bothwell. All right, we will go on to committee updates. Vice Chair Rowland, safe to say that the bylaws has been covered this evening previously?
Yes, nothing more to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan, same for the Intergovernmental Committee?
Oh, I wasn't, okay, yeah, no, it was presented today, so it's,
Okay. Yeah, okay. I see you have your hand up. Was that for CFO Bothwell?
yeah, I was there
Okay.
also. So on the, you're gonna introduce all this addition, the, uh, you get 9 more points to include it to in here, right? For next week. Okay.
We have 9 more decision packages that'll be presented by staff. Yep.
Okay, so I assume that the chief Hova's budget will be including all this. Is that correct?
No, that's not a safe assumption. So the chief's still working on his putting the package together and what's in, what's out. This is just the reason we're presenting these items tonight and next week is to give you to create awareness for you all of what the divisions are asking for in terms of operational needs.
Okay.
And that's the primary, and to seek your feedback. So we got a lot of great questions tonight, and that'll help the chief kind of formulate what the final budget package that he advances for your consideration looks like.
So he might screen out some of the, look at the big picture, he might screen out some of the requests and not moving forward. Is that correct?
Most definitely.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan, for that clarifying question. I was assuming with you that that was made part of the chief's budget.
Good.
All right, so now we're on to Snow 911 with myself. Number of items to cover. Excuse me, going back to the Wednesday, July 6th, there was the new Snow 911 walkthrough the building. The building location is 332 Southwest Everett Mall Way. It is a 4-story building at the intersection of 3rd Avenue Southeast and Everett Mall Way. There is a stoplight there. It is the only multi-story building there. It is on the southeast corner, if I remember correctly, looking at it. Thank you, Chief Hovis, for the head nod. And then Thursday, August 18th was the monthly meeting where the 2023 draft budget was presented. They're looking to do some breaking of the 911 staffing paradigm, in that it's a high stress, demanding, critical job. The dispatchers are managing 1,500 to 2,000 incidents every day here in Snohomish County. They are currently running short-staffed than what they would like to be at, and so they're trying to create a 2-year strategy of being at plus 12. So they have for the 2023 budget plus 8 headcount, and then they're looking for the 24 budget of being a plus 4. They may span that out to 3 years, so it'd be 4, 4, and 4. The executive director, Kurt Mills, provided a new org chart in that the Angie has left, and so she is no longer there overseeing both finance and HR. So they have sitting is their deputy director, Terry Peterson, and he is overseeing the director of technology, PR and admin support, director of operations. And then they hired a new director of finance, of Wade Anderson, and they have an open spot for the director of human resources. The compensation study by Compensation Connections out of Bellevue, Washington, said that 16 of the 33 job titles were behind the market by more than 5%, and 3 were over the market. Their operating budget of 2020-22 was just over 26 million. Their operating budget for 2023 is just over 29 million. That's an increase of about 3.7 million or 12.6%. They're adding an agency for 2023. They're adding the Tulalip Police radio subscription. So for the first time ever, Tulalip Police will be running on Snow 911. Are there any questions on that update? Commissioner Chan.
Oh, thank you for that detailed update. I'm just curious, what's the background of the new finance director?
He has a history of finance. I don't remember too much. He's a good guy. I met with him once. So Angie was very competent in him, his abilities. So
Okay.
she has since moved on to another agency.
Was he a CPA? Is the director? Was he?
Chief Hovis, member of the personnel subcommittee. Do you remember too much about Mr. Wade Anderson?
Commissioner Chan, they hired a new individual when you were still on the board, and that individual lasted
Oh,
about
that-
a year.
Right.
So that's not that person, it's the new person. Off the top of
Oh.
my head, I'm sensing some Marysville, Lake Stevens area history. He came in as an interim pretty fast, so I think we could do a little bit of research and find that out, but I wouldn't be able to speak to his resume.
I think even before I left, I think there was one person just jump in as a contract person, and then they convert him to be okay.
That's that person. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. No, I'm happy they divided up the HR and finance. That was one of my suggestions, and I'm glad finally they took that suggestion. I'm really happy. Thank you.
So yeah, the deputy director, as well as the director of finance and the director of human resources, will report directly to the executive director. So just to clarify. Mr. Todd.
Thanks. I don't remember exactly how the funding process goes. I remember there was kind of members that were on the board that were making a decision. Not all the represented agencies were decision makers. I just bottom line, that was my background about what I forget and what I don't remember. Is the decision made yet on the 2023 budget? Or is this a proposal to some board and there's yet arguments to be had about a 12% increase?
There is proposal, so there's still plenty of room for discussion.
And what's the South County's fire role on this? Do we have a voting spot, or are we one of those that's in the?
I am the primary voter spot for the big fire, if I remember the correct term. Is that right, Chief Hovis?
Yeah, so we have one elected spot for the large fire caucus, and Chair Daniels serves in that, Commissioner Chan previously, and then I'm the first alternate from basically badged officials or fire chiefs or assistant chiefs. So if one of the three primary is not available, then I move up into a voting position. So potentially we have two, minimum of one, maximum of 2 votes on the the Snow 911 board, excuse me, made up of 1/3 law enforcement, 1/3 fire roughly, and 1/3 of elected officials per the SNOCOM snowpack merger plan document.
On one hand, that's great service. We don't want to underfund that, and I know they've been running short. So on one hand, you can't say those guys ought to work harder and on less people. But if somebody doesn't push back a little bit, 12% increases are not sustainable. And so, what mechanism is that appropriate? Those of you who've been on the board, like I said, I've not been paying attention the last couple of years. It was not part of our fire issue so much as it's been a police issue for us.
Their revenue stream also includes sales tax. That was just pushed in this, I believe this last year was adopted. Also, just for clarification, the big fire caucus consists of South County Fire, Surfer, and I believe there's a third agency that alluded.
Everett.
Like I wanted to say Everett, but I wasn't 100%. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any further questions for me? All right, seeing none, we will go in. Oh, Commissioner Farinahoff.
Yeah, just real quick, you mentioned that they're onboarding Tulalip.
Yes.
Okay, and that's Tulalip police or police and fire both into the system?
Police. I believe they're contracting the fire currently. Is that right, Chief Hovis?
District 15 is underneath the fire already. It's the law enforcement piece where they've had their own dispatch for years. That's transferring over to SNOCOM.
Excellent, excellent. I've worked with Tulalip in the past, and that's good news. Also, Tulalip seems to have a fairly robust business district. Are they paying into the system as well? And is that a fairly large contribution now that they're part of the system?
I don't know that detail.
That's a great question, as that Quilceda Village continues to develop, and those revenue streams or the sales tax was subject to some consternation between state, county, and the tribe. Maybe 18 months, say COVID time, it could have been 5 years ago, but about 18 months ago, I think. So I know that's going to be expanding, and I know that's going to be able to contribute to the county and the tribe in a multitude of ways. I know that both the police chief and fire chief and their supporting boards, and that the tribe are looking at where they can go in the future and future partnership opportunities and growth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, Chief Hopers, can you clarify? I thought they were not, they were just a contract to the Snow 911. They're not, even the police, they're not part of the member.
What
Am I
Commissioner
correct?
Daniels is reporting is they're gonna come over fully.
Oh,
And
they
this
are?
next, transition into full law enforcement integration into Snow 911. That's a new development. That's what he was mentioning.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we will go into commissioner comments. Any commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I just asked Commissioner Daniels that put in the next for the coming week sessions, put in an agenda for the diversity and inclusion. I would like to have a little bit discussions. I know that Chief Hobers have been really vocal about that, and I really support that. Previously, we have a diverse, well, first of all, I think we are the fire service for all the cities, and all the cities, the major city, Linwood, Edmonds, and my Terrace have a inclusions and diversity kind of committee. They want to promote that. And even that, in addition, the chief, fire chief organization, they are kind of promoting that. So I really like to have a little discussions on that. We used to have a diversity committee, but I think at that time the fire chief was not fully supported. And unfortunately, one of the facilitator just make comments about not trusting the local dentist. And then that translated into really kind of dissolve the whole thing. So I would like to revitalize that thing. Just at least have a discussions. That's how I like to put it on agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farnahoff.
Yeah, I just want to support Commissioner Chan with that proposition there to put that on the ballot, I think, or the ballot, put it on the agenda. I think that's really important. It brings strength to any organization, and I just wanted to support that. And also just, I really appreciated everybody's presentation this evening. I thought it was very thorough, each one of your presentations, whether it's been on equipment or finance. We really do appreciate everybody coming forward and obviously spending their entire evening here. And so just wanted to thank everybody. Very well done.
On behalf of staff, thank you, Commissioner and Commissioners.
All right, any other commissioners? I'd like to echo what Commissioner Farnahoff said, and thank you for your presentations. They were very thorough and thought out, so thank you for that. I also have a couple of reminders. The WFCA conference, if you'd like to go, the main hotel block is sold out, so please let Melissa know if you're interested in going. Also, if you're not attending the conference in person, but you're still interested in the SNR seminar virtually event on Wednesday night, also please let Melissa know. And finally, there was an email that went out asking if you'd like to, what you'd like to get out of the retreat coming up on Friday, December 2nd. It should be on your calendars. Looking for the time to be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. At HQ in person. So, but most importantly, we need to know what you're looking to get out of that event. So if you can get that to Melissa, say Monday morning, Friday morning, Melissa, what would work best for the
by the end of the week
retreat?
would be great.
Okay.
Early next week at the latest.
Okay. So looking forward to your responses so we can put a program together that we can all enjoy. And with that, we are going to move into executive session. First component will be potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.11 subsection 1 subsection I. And the next one will be Sorry, I live 1 mile south of Payne Field. I had an airplane landing above me. The next one would be review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.11 subsection 1 subsection G. And we will start off with I think 20 minutes will be a good start, and then we'll increment from there. And I believe we were given separate links to jump into. Is that right, Melissa? Okay.
The executive session has been extended for 10 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 10 minutes. The executive session has been extended for the executive session has been extended for 15 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 15 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 5 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 3 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 5 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 3 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 5 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 2 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 5 minutes. The regular meeting has been brought back to order at 11:28 p.m. and without objection, the regular meeting has been adjourned. Good night.